Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ben. Today I'm coming at you with another video, and this time I'm going to be talking about how I rank the different bases for MMA. So, basically, I'm going to be talking about how, usually what will happen is MMA fighters before, when they were kids, they'd have some base of MMA, such as wrestling, kickboxing, taekwondo, right? And so the different bases and how they rank and um, how, I guess, helpful of bases that they are. So D, that represents Krav Maga, and as a self-defense form, it probably is decent. It's used. It was developed for Israeli special forces, but for MMA fighting, not as much. Because like even some of the Krav Maga has to do with like you don't have a weapon, but your opponent does, right? And so it's a lot more self-defense based, and it's a lot of different. It's an incomplete form, I would say. And so for MMA purposes, I don't think it's that effective, and hardly anyone uses it or starts with it. And so let's move on to C. So the thing about these next three is that they have good bases, and I think they're a little slept on in MMA. I mean, boxing. I don't. Boxing isn't because usually boxers don't. They just don't go into MMA because there's no point. You can make just about the same amount of money doing boxing. I think UFC might be starting to eclipse the boxing scene, but that's not for certain. Boxing is still strong, and they draw a lot of people to crowds in Las Vegas and probably other places as well. But it's still rather popular, and so it's not really prudent for a boxer to join MMA because they'll be at a severe disadvantage, and they can make money doing boxing just the same. Anyways, so Taekwondo and karate, they're good striking starts. They're incomplete, and you really have to round out your game. But learning how to strike and honestly learning how to get in and out. Joe Rogan talks about it a lot, but point fighting, it's slept on a little bit, but at the same time, it is incomplete, and usually the guys like that don't, for the most part, they don't win championships. Although I mean, there are two major examples, and they're very good fighters. Michael Venom Page and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. They fight in that kind of point fight style where they go in and out, right? And it's very effective. So next one we're going to move up to B. That would be kickboxing and jujitsu. Jujitsu, honestly, kind of like it was definitely a big like push when UFC came in, right? It really heaved the jujitsu guys into more modern mainstream because at the time it was effective because when you don't know what jiu-jitsu is and the submission game and all that, you can get screwed very quickly, right? And Hoyce Gracie, who's on the screen in the white, proved that it is effective martial arts, but it is incomplete, and you can leave yourself open. And one of the things about jiu-jitsu is that a lot of jiu-jitsu guys will like to just stay in their back and try to work submissions from the back, but if you don't want to, you can just stand up. And then you have to deal with the striking and keep getting beat up or wait until your opponent decides if they're a wrestler to wrestle you but you're probably not going to want to do that. And like for example, Daniel Cormier did that with Frank Mir, and because he's just like, I'm not going into Frank Mir's guard, and I wouldn't either. It kind of sucks. He probably should have tried to go for something and get top control to some extent, but at the same time, he did win the fight. So obviously, he knew what he was doing. But anyways, so then kickboxing's next because it adds more. It adds that additional kicking game, like the straightforward, more striking style boxing versus karate, where it's in and out. You're kind of more in their face, and then you add the kicks and stuff to it. So that provides more of a good striking base. And right there is Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya, and they're both they've both been, actually Pereira is a champ right now, and Israel has been a champ before, and so it is a good base to start with. And then the next level, A, the first one is Wyatt Hendrickson taking down Gable Steveson, who's an Olympic champion. But that represents folk style. And folk style is the American way, and a lot of great wrestlers have become champs, like Henry Cejudo, and Daniel Cormier, right? And Demetrius Johnson, and I think John Jones started there. Not that I really like him, but I think he was in JUCO. And they're just Ben Askren wasn't a champ, but Ben Askren, they're just a lot of Kamaru Usman. They're wrestlers, and it's folk style. In America, you start out at folk style. You can do freestyle too, but most of the time they do folk style because that's what high school and college is folk style. That it's proven to be a great base to start with. And then the next one is Muay Thai. That's Rod Tang from ONE FC. And that's just... Muay Thai is like the entire stand-up game. So obviously it's a good base to start with. And you have some clinching. And, you got to learn the takedowns and stuff like that. Because if you get a wrestler, MMA fighter, a guy who knows some striking like Demetrius Johnson, you get screwed. Because Rod Tang fought Demetrius Johnson in a hybrid bout with Muay Thai rules for one round and then MMA rules for the next. And the second round, when MMA started, Demetrius got him. And it's just, but that's because Rod Tang doesn't deal with takedowns. And so if he got some more training with that, he probably would fare a lot better. But anyways, let's move on to the next. That's freestyle. I didn't include Greco-Roman because I don't really know of any. They don't really start with Greco, like anywhere, I don't think. I mean, I guess technically probably in Russia they might, but also in Russia they start with freestyle, which is this. But I think Greco can be kind of a good base, but it also is more incomplete than folk style and freestyle because it's just upper body and you need to know how to work the legs usually. Not that Greco-Roman is bad, it's good. It's just a little incomplete. But freestyle is a good base. That's what a lot of Russians start with for the wrestling side. Americans do it somewhat. And it's a good base. I think from a takedown perspective, it's not as great because they don't. So what I mean by that is takedown defense because you don't. Well, and standing back up, that's what I mean. So like if you're in an MMA fight, you get taken down 4 minutes to go. You want to try to stand back up, and freestyle does not deal with that pretty much at all. You just wait. You try to keep them from turning you so they can't score points on you, and then that's it, and you get stood back up. And that, I think, is a crucial, I guess, hole, but it's also, these are bases, and they're their own thing. So it's like, it's a good thing to start with, but you got to learn the whole shebang. Let's go to number 7, or not 7. Go to the top one. That's Khabib's face, but Sambo. It represents Sambo because I believe, was 2-time combat Sambo world champion. And so Sambo is just kind of the entire ground game. And it is the most effective, and a lot of guys, they do really well training it. Him and Islam are examples. And it's basically MMA. They wear gear, I believe, but yeah, it's basically MMA. And so it's like there's sports sambo too, and there's beach sambo, but it's basically just MMA with pads. And I don't. Anyways, so sambo is the top one, and that's going to be it for this video, guys. Please like, comment what you thought of this video, comment what you thought of what I was talking about, and subscribe. I'll see you all later.